Hi everyone, this is William and Larry with our video on the famous white chapter in the book Moby Dick. So it's chapter 42. It's actually called The Whiteness of the Whale. It's probably the most famous chapter in the book. And as you can see, my copy is not in good shape. This is like the first half of it. Oh, hold on. Somebody just sent us a text. Anything from the store. Okay. Larry can handle that. Yeah, it is an old copy, and I've read the book a couple times, and it actually it was a gift. It had an inscription. It has an inscription in it.
Oh, so Eric bought you that?
Yeah.
Oh, I got
A mutual friend of ours who's an English teacher. I am a historian, and Larry is a businessman, but we, all three of us, share an interest in literature. So I also have a series called Life on the Magic Mountain, which is about Thomas Mann's novel, The Magic Mountain, and Larry and I are going to do a video on that at some point. But today, just the white chapter. So this is, did I already say? Yeah, I already said, didn't I? It's probably the most famous, the most famous chapter in the book, and it is short. And it does not advance the plot in the sense of action. Nothing happens in this chapter. It's the narrator Ishmael who's feeling more and more uncomfortable as he's out on this whaling vessel, and they're pursuing Moby Dick. The crew's not on board with that, but the captain, Ahab, notoriously wants to get Moby Dick, the white whale, and everybody has deep misgivings about that. And Ishmael is taking some time out to think about that. Why, in particular, Moby Dick's color? He's a white whale. Why that should make Moby Dick so terrifying to him and to other members of the crew. And he actually considers it to be the color, that's the defining part of Moby Dick that they find so scary. Okay.
I haven't read the book yet. So is Ishmael an educated man in the character?
You know, we don't know very much about him. He seems to be. He's not even using his real name. The famous first chapter of the book is Call Me Ishmael.
Yeah.
Or first chapter, first line, because that's not his real name. So he's telling us that that's what he's going to call himself. And earlier on, I would have said that the theme of the white chapter is evil. And it sort of is, but not really. But anyway, we have some scary things here that are white. We're doing this in Larry's D&D room, and here's a monster that's white. And here, is this like an elemental, like a wave?
Let's see. I think it's a air elemental.
Yeah, okay. So it's like a water elemental or a cloud elemental. And these kind of illustrate that what the white chapter is about is that how white is scary. Whether it's evil or not, it's scary. And that kind of goes against the grain, because we usually think of black or red as being the scary colors.
Like the devil. Red
like the devil, and like blood, and black because of the darkness, and we associate black with evil. So the first question I wanted to ask, I'm talking too much, I need to turn it over to Larry as well, but the first question I wanted to ask, because I'm working on a novel myself, well, so is everybody, but anyway, I take it very seriously, and I think if I was to do this in my book, I would have to have a reason to do it. You don't just stop the narrative for no reason. And so what is the crucial thing, the important thing that Melville, that's so important to be said, that he's willing to stop the narrative of the book and devote one whole chapter to this topic? So obviously it's something that goes right to the very heart of the book. And as I was saying, I originally had thought, well, it's a discourse on evil. And Larry and I had been talking about getting together and just having sort of a philosophical conversation on what is the nature of evil. Does it exist? Can it be personified? That sort of thing. But I'm not so sure that evil is necessarily the theme of this chapter. So what is your impression, Larry?
Of the white whale, or is it
Of-
what he
of-
thinks about whiteness is?
Yeah, why he would stop the narrative of the book and put this chapter in? He must have something that he considers very important to say. So,
What's the whole reasoning behind the book? Probably why did Ahab go out and try to kill this guy, right? And what's the
yeah, so it's not just a whale. If it
Yeah.
was just a whale, then Ahab wouldn't be so obsessed with it, even though he has these horrific injuries that he got fighting Moby Dick at an earlier point. I mean, really serious injuries. Even so, there's something about this whale that's different, and something that's kind of elemental, you could say. And so, yeah, at the core of the book, you have not just a quest to kill an animal. You have a quest to overcome something that is primeval and primordial and elemental. And of course, when human beings try to do that, it's like they're trying to steal fire from the gods. They're crossing a boundary that is going into God's prerogative, and that always ends badly. And of course, I'm not going to worry about spoiler alerts. This is an old novel. So Ahab dies, and he takes most of the people down with him, the entire crew except for Ishmael. And oddly enough, I was kind of thinking of this today while I was taking a shower in terms of the last girl in horror movies, right? That topos in horror movies where the girl who represents purity and all the good qualities, she is the only one that survives in these sort of 80s style slasher movies. So why would I think of Ishmael in that respect? Well, he's the only survivor, and I would say he is the one that has awareness. What makes him the last girl in this instance is not that he is virtuous or that he represents purity, but that he comes to full awareness of what this struggle is about and what Moby Dick is, and everybody else, with 3 exceptions, possibly 4, is not aware, and the other ones that are aware have some kind of fatal flaw. So there's a cabin boy called Pip, and Pip has this experience of the infinite. He falls off the boat, and he goes very deep down into the sea. And he has this experience. He's a boy, and he's not at all educated, and his brain isn't equipped to deal with what he sees because he has a vision. It's not like his life passing before his eyes. It's a real vision of infinity. And when he comes back, he's completely crazy. Everybody else accepts that. Whatever he has seen has broken him. He's now just mad, and he can't express what he's seen. So he dies. He can't come to the other side of awareness like Ishmael has the awareness and is able to process it. Pip can't process it. So another one is Queequeg, the famous chief harpoon man, who's a Pacific Islander, and he is non-Christian, and he's very tuned in to spirits and that sort of thing. And again, he doesn't have full awareness, but he has a premonition, and the premonition is that he's going to die. So he starts working on his own coffin in his spare time while he's aboard a ship. And he's correct, he does die. And then there's Ahab himself. And Ahab has an awareness that Moby Dick is something beyond an ordinary whale. But Ahab, like I said, is offending the gods by going where a mortal man is not supposed to go, and by trying to battle and win against this elemental force. So anyway, that's my take on why you could call Ishmael the last girl. Okay, so another thing that I would associate it with is the devil, Lucifer, because the name in Greek literally means the light bearer, And one of the
He
things
disguises
that
himself as an angel of light.
yeah, and he's
It says it
beautiful.
right there in the Bible.
Yeah, he's beautiful, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he's like the most beautiful of the entire creation. And you know, usually we see him in his fallen state as either black or red. Neither of those terms, of course, please, in a racial sense, but but he's an angel of light. He is the light bearer, Lucifer. Okay, and the last note that I have is about fate. And I don't know, but I have a question mark by the idea that the force that Moby Dick represents is fate. Destiny, and that's something that, at least in the terms set by the novel, you can't fight against.
You think
can't,
Abraham was fated to do that? But what about the men on the ship, though?
Yeah,
I guess they signed up for his fate.
they did. You know, and there's never a mutiny. It comes pretty close.
What if they had a feeling about it?
I think at some
You had a
point,
feeling about somebody
at some
like
point, you cross to
Yeah.
an awareness that this is a doomed, that we all have been pulled
but you
into
signed
this.
up anyway.
But you signed up anyway, yeah, and definitely people know that Ahab has this obsession. But they sign up anyway, and Ahab, of course, does not own the boat, the Pequod. It belongs to two. They might have been Quakers, two very religious but very good business people.
So in the book, why did they hire Ahab for that ship, just to go whaling? Did they really know about what it was about?
He's a great captain, and I guess he was trying to disguise the fact that once he got control of the boat and the crew, he was going to go for it.
Oh, really? Did they know he was going after the whale then in the book?
Not initially, because he doesn't stop, start stalking it immediately. But he needs to have them in thrall, and I think he's a very charismatic figure. I think the people have a hard time breaking away from him. He kind of puts them under a spell, and it's a dark spell, and they know it's a dark spell. It is what it is. So,
because some people believe that, like we say, evil is darkness.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that evil is it's bright.
Yeah.
It's in your face.
In the mold.
And that's what makes you almost afraid of it.
Yeah.
That it's there, it's looking you in the face, and it's daring you.
Yeah, exactly.
Say, hey, instead of being in the dark,
in the shadows,
like Lucifer is very
shadows.
Beautiful. It's like you ever watch movies that it's the character you don't know about, but acts good, and all of a sudden he turns out he's the guy.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like so not hidden, but he's the one that had the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And Ahab himself is very much an underworld figure. But
so it's amazing there was no mutiny.
It's amazing there was no mutiny. And I should add, there's another character who has some degree of awareness, but not enough, and that's the first officer, Starbuck. And Starbuck comes very close to...
That's from Battlestar Galactica.
Well, Moby Dick came first.
I know. It's kind of funny they used that, right?
Yeah. So Starbuck comes very close to putting Ahab out of the way, because he also has a premonition that I am not going to be returning home to my wife and children. And there's a moment when he really mourns in advance that loss, but he doesn't do anything. So Ahab really has these people in thrall to him.
Oh, so this is interesting. So I never So it's like I've read books on Stalin and Mao, and it's the same thing, exact same thing, where Mao, I guess China could be like the whale, he's conquering it, and he's Ahab, but the funny thing is that he could have been stopped by so many people.
Yeah.
And then they know that if they don't do something, it will hurt them and their family. They could possibly die. But if they don't stop it, everybody's going to die from what he's doing.
And they don't stop it.
And they don't stop him. And it's the most frustrating thing, because that's what happened. If people just stood up, then somebody else stands up, and then eventually somebody else stands up.
So do you think that has that sort of ties into the idea of fate? Like, could you say that Ahab and these various dictators, including Hitler, were sort of fate bearers. They bore the fate of their people or of their crew, and their crew kind of accepted that without understanding it. This person represents fate in our context. I mean, they're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong, but they could have turned fate around by standing up.
Yeah, and
maybe it's a way in your life to say, hey, stand up
yeah.
to the guy that's going after this mythical idea, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, don't become a fatalist, I guess.
That's right. Don't step into it.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, even like, like that saying, die with your boots on, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna die knowing that you did the right thing.
Yeah.
At least you'll have that. And then your family would almost know that he did the right thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just the family's like, well, that was dumb. You went out with that crazy guy, and then you die with him, and you knew.
Yeah.
Someone of the families knew.
So we can shake on that we're not going to let ourselves become attached to a person whose fate is a death fate.
Because that's what real friendship is. It's not letting your friend go dive off the deep end. Like if your friend gets caught up in one of those quick rich schemes, and you're like, hey, it doesn't sound right. Why would you want to go do that? I need to pull you back from that. What's going on.
So maybe Ishmael could have done more.
Instead of just contemplating.
Yeah.
He could have. Well, maybe he thought he just didn't have it. Maybe he didn't have as much charisma.
Yeah, he definitely didn't. But if I recall, I read the book recently, but it's been about a year. And then, of course, I reread today the White chapter. But I kind of think that it was Ishmael and Starbuck who were discussing this idea of maybe doing something about Ahab. But they didn't. And, Ishmael was fortunate enough to survive. Starbuck was not.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I got a word. I don't know if it's my saying but even as Christians or anybody, that sometimes you just have to have, I just say the word, but like kind of a fuck you attitude in life at times. Like I've had dealings in my life where I got to be the asshole right now. I don't want to be, but I have to do this to make sure that this gets done. Something gets done. So these guys weren't willing to step up and say, Ahab, F you, this is insane. We need to stop this. And when we're going to go home so we can be with our families again and get on with our lives. And if you want to go do this again, go do that on your own accord. Go, if you want to go off the deep end, okay, go off the deep end. But if anybody wants to go with you, I'm going to tell them that you're on a you're on a death wish here, and I'm not going to let anybody else. If they want to go after I'm done talking to them, okay. But at least I did my part. That's like Cain and Abel, right? In a weird way. Am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
And who's your brother?
Yeah.
It's
true. I mean, it would have been so easy for them to overcome Ahab, this old peg-leg guy.
Yeah.
It would have been the simplest thing in the world. Overcoming Moby Dick, on the other hand, grappling with this elemental force, that they're not going to be able to do. But they could have taken care of Ahab, and they would not have been charged with any kind of mutiny. It wasn't a naval vessel, and the owners would have thanked them if the
but look at their ship back.
Yeah,
they lost everything.
Yeah. So looking at the chapter itself, let's see. So even in the first or the second paragraph, Ishmael is using words like soul, and overpowered and mystical. So he's already using these words that make us realize that we're entering another world, basically. And to emphasize how important this chapter is to Melville and to the narrator, he writes, explain myself I must, else all these chapters might be naught. So the whole book will come to nothing. if he doesn't write this chapter. So in Jungian psychology, you have two things.
What kind of psychology?
Jungian, Carl
Okay.
Gustav Jung. So Freud had the idea of, when he was interpreting dreams, and this is kind of a dreamlike chapter, when he was interpreting dreams, he liked to use something called association. So you would take all the elements in your dream and you would say, yes, I associate eating strawberries with my childhood. But Jung went a step further and added something called, what is it? I have it written down. Association and amplification. So you're not just relating each element like, I associate whales with the Oregon coast and with fun times that I've had there watching the whales. You're also amplifying it. What does a whale mean in a broader sense, in a metaphysical sense, in a cultural sense? So that's kind of what I was thinking of as I was reading this. So let's see. There's this very racist statement about white is associated with holiness, with royalty, and also with the preeminence of the white man, Melville puts it. So that certainly is not a value, I hope, that we have nowadays. Some people certainly do, but he's right. I think that was one of the things that was behind slavery in the U.S. Now, interestingly, in Russia, they had serfdom, which basically amounted to slavery. You could buy and sell human beings, but they were other Russians. They were Russian peasants. And unfortunately, in the U.S., part of the justification for slavery was that people had a different skin color. They had a dark skin color, and they were associated with this idea of black being sinister. And so that added to the really horribleness of slavery in this country.
What about the Irish, too?
The Irish?
The Irish were treated horribly, too, when they came over.
Well, they were.
They
but
were
they
looked down like they were
but
like subhuman.
Yeah, they were, and the Jews were that came from Poland.
Yeah.
But there's still something visceral, unfortunately, in the American psyche when it comes to African Americans and the legacy of slavery. I think, anyway. And then he talks about how white triggers something, it's sublime, but whatever is sweet and honorable and sublime, there yet lurks an elusive something in the innermost idea of this hue, the color white, which strikes more of panic to the soul than that redness which affrights in blood. So some people are so startled by the sight of blood that they'll actually faint. And, red has other negative connotations. For instance, that, a fallen woman will wear red, or the scarlet letter A.
Scarlet letter is right, yeah.
But he's saying there's something, even though white is often seen as sweet and sublime, there's something in it that frightens us even beyond the sight of blood. And I would say, personally, it's because light casts a shadow. That's one of the reasons. You can't have shadow without light, equating the color white with light. And okay, so going on, then
So maybe it's almost like you think there's goodness there, but it's hidden.
But
it's kind of like if you go to the South and bless your heart doesn't mean bless your heart.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost a self-righteousness in a lot of ways, right? Just since I'm looked this way, I should be treated a certain way, even though I could be an evil son of a bitch.
Yeah.
More, and the peasant, who's looked down upon, has got shit all over him, or just even a black person.
Yeah. So there's that sort of primeval, primitive understanding that light casts a shadow, and that there's an element of distrust there. So the author then goes on to list three animals. Well, there's a whole list of animals. So the first one is a polar bear. The next one is a shark, like a great white shark. So those are terrifying animals. He's right. You would not want to encounter either one of those and be at its mercy.
No.
The other one is an albatross, which of course is not going to kill you, but it's very visceral superstition, so I gather, among the sailors.
The rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, right?
Yeah. And then finally, there is the white steed. So the white steed is, he talks a lot about Native American mythology, and the white steed of the prairies, a magnificent milk white charger. So what is bad about that? Well, it's revered, and it's a symbol of what he calls, or an apparition of, that unfallen Western world. So away from the world that's not just, so if you're looking at things in a very primitive way, from the viewpoint of a white European or American at that time, you would see the world of the East, of Asia, and of Africa, and of India as being a dark realm, not only because of skin color, but also because they're not Christian, and they have all these demonic-looking gods and goddesses. And so the white steed is a representative of the unfallen Western world, and yet it's included on this list of things that are scary whiteness.
So it's kind of wild where you have one group of people that are in a certain level of technology, right? But then where did they come from? So they forget kind of where they came from, and then they run along another group. It's like, oh, they were where we were at 100 years, 200 years ago, but we're here now, and now we're judging them not from that time that we started from. We're judging them from like right now.
Yeah.
So it's like it says in the Bible, like Noah was a good man of his time.
Okay, we will resume this.